essentially, I don't know if you even know this, but I hosted LiveNOW from Fox between 2020 and 2022.
I did, because I've seen some clips of you.
For better or for worse, because this was full height on pandemic era when I started filling in, and I was also hosting on the weekends. It actually started in Phoenix. So I actually went out there to help because one of the hosts was going on maternity leave. And so they brought me to Phoenix. I trained for about 2 days with the person that was going to be going on maternity leave.
Okay.
And then it was trial by fire because she left. And so it was me and Mike Page, and that's it.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny.
That was it. Just us two. But I want to start with asking you, and I've talked to other journalists about this, especially most recently Yasmin Vazougian, who has a very complex name. One that I asked her about, she could have easily decided to change her name, but decided not to. And I feel like you probably resonate with that idea of being an on-air personality. Do I change my name? Do I not change my name? Do I make it easier for people to pronounce? Do I not? Can you tell me if you even ever thought about that, and what made you ultimately decide to keep a name like Coueignoux, which is easy to pronounce, but when people look at it, I'm sure they're like, huh?
I mean, it stumps everyone. And yes, I did think about changing my name before I started my on-air career. And it was my mom who said, absolutely not. If you change your name, I'm going to be so upset. She's like, look at Leonardo DiCaprio. She's like, no one knew how to pronounce his name when he started. And now everyone knows his name. She's like, you're going to have everyone know your name. And I was like, okay, fine. So I kept it. And then I got married. And then I never changed my on-air name to my married name. So it's just stuck. And now I've had it with me on air for years and years. And so I've kept it. But I was thinking, I was like, the alliteration thing, I was like, well, maybe it'll be like Stephanie Starr or something easy and memorable. But yeah, no, my mom said absolutely not. And so I was like, okay, fine.
It's so funny you say that, because on a recent podcast episode of The Heights, Leonardo DiCaprio was interviewed. He rarely does interview. This was his first podcast interview. It was with Travis Kelce, the Kelce brothers. And he talked exactly about that, how when he was starting out in the industry, his agent wanted to change his name. And his dad said, absolutely not.
Yeah, so he was my mom's inspiration, like guiding her and telling me, like, no, keep your name. It's something to be proud of. This is your identity, and people will figure it out. So,
Yeah.
It's been a process, and now, like, for my signature on all of my emails, I always have the pronouncer, because that's like the number one question people ask me. So I get it. It's a tongue twister, and if I didn't grow up with it, like, I also wouldn't know how to pronounce it either. So I never hold it against anyone.
Yeah. Where did you grow up, though? I'm so curious.
So my last name is French, from France, and my dad is French. He was born and raised in Paris. So I actually was born in France. My dad met my mom in France. She grew up in Queens, New York. So she left to go to France to go to medical school, and they had a little meet cute in their apartment building over a trash heap that was clogged. It's a long other story. It's really adorable. But anyway, so I was born in France, and then the agreement was that they would raise the kids in the United States, because that's where my mom was raised. That's where my grandmother was still living. So we moved to the United States and moved around a lot for my parents' jobs. They were not in the military, but they just kind of moved around. So pretty much spent most of my childhood growing up in Boston.
Oh, okay. And how long did you live in Boston for?
So we moved there when I was about to go into fourth grade. And then through college, I had my first on-air gig in the Boston area. And then I moved away for professional reasons, like making my way up through the TV news ladder after that.
So you moved to the United States when you were in fourth grade, right?
No. So I was a baby.
Oh,
Yeah. So I
okay.
was a baby, but we moved to Boston particularly. So I've lived in California when I was little. I lived in Denver, and then ultimately landed in Boston.
Got it. And your first on-air gig, you said, was in Boston. So did you want to go into journalism since you were a little kid, or when did that happen?
I never even thought that was a career option. Like we always watched the news growing up, but I never thought, gee, I want to be on TV. For me, I always loved to write. Like I thought I would be an author. Like I loved to be creative. I loved to put my thoughts down onto paper. And so that's what I thought I was going to do. Like maybe be a magazine writer. I loved fashion. I also loved psychology. I thought I wanted to be a psychiatrist. And then my mom said, you know, you're going to have to go to medical school. And I thought, okay, maybe that's not for me. Then I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. And then I realized there's a lot of paperwork being a lawyer, a lot of research. I was like, well, maybe that's not for me. So I was kind of thinking about different things. And it was actually my mom who said, you know, Stephanie, you love to ask questions. You love to be in the know. Have you ever thought of TV news? And that wasn't even a major in my college. So I applied for all these internships, and I got one with the Boston NBC station. And I was on the assignment desk where you pick up the phones and you kind of field calls. And I fell in love with it because I was on the front lines of information. I could be the first to know what was happening. You have access to all these incredible people because you're in the news. And so I kind of just fell into it. I never thought that I would ever be a journalist, but I was in college going into my senior year, and that's when I really found my calling.
So what's your major again?
So I majored in psychology, and I minored in art history.
Which probably both actually play a role in journalism. You'd be surprised, but I'm sure.
It's fascinating because psychology is such a big part of what journalism is. It's about speaking with people, getting them to open up to you, you know, creating that level of trust where they share with you what they may have never shared before with anyone else. You know, how to ask the right questions. What kind of tone do you want? The demeanor. I mean, it's incredible, the human aspect of journalism and how psychology plays a role into all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will get to all of that as well. But first, where did your career go? So you took your internship in Boston, and then where did you go next?
So I graduated college without a job, much to probably the consternation of my parents. Like all of my friends, you know, it's like, I'm going to be an iBanker in New York City. I'm going to do this. And I'm like, well, I don't really have anything. So right after college, I was a barista at Starbucks. And I don't know if it's the case now, but at the time you could work there part-time and still get full-time health benefits, which was fantastic. But I actually found an unpaid, and I guess it was an internship with one of the city's cable access news programs where you could anchor the weekly news program, and then you would go out for the rest of the week and actually shoot your own stories and edit them. And so my news director took me under her wing, and she was my mentor, and she taught me all there is to know about news because I didn't major in it. There was no TV program at my college. And so I did that for a year, and then I got my first job in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, and most people probably don't know where that is, but it's right next to the border of Wyoming. There is no longer a news program in that market anymore. They shut it down. But I got the call from the news director, and then sight unseen, I packed my little Honda Civic hatchback with all of my belongings, and then my mom and I drove out there and started my career.
Your story is so unique, but it's also so common in so many ways. One, not always knowing exactly what you want to do while you're in college. And I think it's important for listeners to know that if you don't have the journalism degree, that doesn't mean you can't go and become a journalist later. I have a media arts degree, which is similar, but it's still not a journalism degree. In addition to that, going to a market and starting in that teeny tiny market that you maybe know absolutely nothing about and cutting your teeth there, very common as well.
Yes, I mean, and at the time, I was in my young 20s. All my friends were living it up in New York City or, wherever. And here I was in this tiny little town. I think the population was just like, I don't know, thousands of people. And I thought, gosh, this is such a different life, but I wouldn't trade it for anything because it opened my eyes to so many different perspectives and ways of life. I had never lived in Middle America before. I had never really visited, and that's where most people live. It's not on the peripheries. It's in, Middle America. And it opened my eyes to so much, and I'm so grateful for all of those moves. I then moved to Rhinelander, Wisconsin. I mean, all these places that I never would have visited had it not been for this job. But cutting my teeth in these tiny little markets, learning how to navigate all of that on my own, it absolutely shaped me in terms of who I am, how I respond, how I view life, all of the things.
You got to get out of your little bubble where you're used to living and go explore and learn about these different areas. Not only because starting in a small market, you're starting off with not as many people viewing you. You can make more mistakes in your first market that maybe other people wouldn't, not as many people would see starting out. And also, they're a little bit more forgiving, I would say.
They're more forgiving. That's for
Yes.
sure. Yes. It's interesting because when you first put yourself in any new situation, whatever that is, whether that's personal or professional, I think we often think of the differences first and foremost, like, oh gosh, this is so different from what I'm used to, or that person is so different. But truly, the more that I move, the realize how we're all connected, and the more similarities that I've seen in these vastly, on the surface, different areas geographically, different perspectives. We're all human, and I think we have so much more in common than one might think, and it really has shaped my perspective in terms of reaching out on that human level and getting deeper and finding those connections and getting to know people on that level. I think the way that my professional journey has gone has really allowed me to see that. And I'm so grateful. But also, Stephanie, you bring up a good point because I did not know what I wanted to be in college. And I think nowadays when I hear friends and family who have kids who are getting ready to go to college, it's like a track, right? You're like, okay, my kid has to be this, or they're going to be prepped for this. And I was not that way, and I feel like I turned out okay. I'm sure my parents were really worried, but I think that's so comforting, for anyone who might feel lost or they might wonder, is this the right track? It's never too late to shift, and it's also really okay not to know. And that's sometimes where the most beautiful insights and aha moments come from, when you come from that openness of not knowing.
Yeah. And I think when you're in college, when you're in the thick of it, there's so much pressure that you're somehow supposed to have it all figured out already, right?
And I did not. I was not one of those people. I mean, I was living in the present, which was beautiful. But yeah, I needed those nudges from my parents to say, okay, well, you got to think about the future. Like, what's next? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm worried about the weekend, not about like a year from now. So it's a balance. It's a good balance.
Yeah. So you went to Nebraska, then you said you went to Wyoming? Or where did you go next? Wisconsin.
Yeah, Wisconsin. Yes. Yeah. So I was the evening anchor, and we had a big meeting. This was in Nebraska, a big meeting the next day. We were called in by the owner who flew in from Georgia. We were all, sat down, and we were told the station has closed. And you didn't know it at the time, but last night was the last night you were ever going to be on air here. And you have 2 days to pack up, get all your stuff together. And I had only been in Nebraska for about 6 months. And I remember calling my parents, and they said, okay, do you just want to fly home? Like, what do you want to do? And I said, this is like 20-something-year-old naivete. I was like, I'll be fine. So I started sending stuff out, and I was very lucky to get a call from Rhinelander, Wisconsin, and I flew up there for an interview to be the morning anchor, and I got the job. And what another world. Like, I I didn't know what deer hunting was, what ice fishing was, what, like all the things, like snowshoeing. And it really opened my world to a whole other environment that I had never been to before. And that was, I mean, what an experience.
Man, it would have been nice if the Nebraska station gave you just a little more update, a little
I
bit more
know.
time to prepare.
Yeah, no, we had 2 days to return our key. I mean, it's been a wild ride. Some of the stories you just can't make up. But yeah,
Right.
completely true.
So how many years were you in Wisconsin for?
I was in Wisconsin for a year and 8 months. And then I got a job in Orlando, which is also completely different. I went from snow and cold for most of the year to it's 80 degrees in December.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I was there for 5 years. I was in Orlando for 5 years. That's where I met my husband. He was a meteorologist actually at the station at the time. And yeah, and I mean, it's so funny because my life is basically each chapter is like a different location. I think a lot of times when you're in TV, you view your life in those chapters. But
Totally.
yeah, so that was the chapter where I moved to Orlando and I met my husband. We got engaged there, and that was the Orlando chapter.
So where did you go after Orlando?
So after Orlando, I went to Cleveland, Ohio. I also had never been there. It was for the NBC station. And I have to tell you, I know that Cleveland has such a, bad reputation. It is one of the nicest cities I've ever been to in terms of the people. The people are so down to earth and welcoming and just nice. And it's a great city with history and really good food. So I was there for 2 years. I really enjoyed it, but I got married at the time, and my husband and I were long distance, and he couldn't find a job in Cleveland. So I left after my contract was up because that was really hard. I mean, we were just flying back and forth from Orlando to Cleveland, and we could do it for a certain amount of time, but that was just really hard for us. And so then I actually temporarily moved back to Orlando before then going to Charlotte, North Carolina, and then Boston, and then back to Orlando.
I was going to ask if you ever made it back to Boston.
I did, yeah. And it was great because I would get emails or, messages from my old classmates, who were able to see me on TV. And it was actually really funny. I ended up, and I didn't know it, but I ended up interviewing one of my old classmates who was now a doctor for this story. And she and I did a double take and we're like, I know you. Yeah, you're the reporter and you're the doctor. It was just so surreal that the time had passed and all this had changed. But that was a special time where I got to report back in my hometown.
And then you were living close by your family again, right?
Yes. So my parents were there and I got to see them. And then they decided that they were going to retire back to France. So full circle there. So we did not have any family back in Boston because both my sisters live on the West Coast. So that was the time where we made that decision. Do we stay in Boston? Do we look at other opportunities? And that's when my husband actually got a really great opportunity in Orlando. And we never thought we would move back, but we did.
And did you move back to the same station?
Yes and no. So I moved to a station that had been sold. So I guess in a way it was the same station, but it was under new ownership.
Okay. And what did you do at the second time around? Was it the same position? What did you do the second time?
It was different. So I was able to build the investigative team. I was one of the founding members, and that to me was really exciting because it was different. I got to innovate. I got to shape the team and the unit. So it was different. I got to do long form pieces. I think one of the longest stories that I ever did was think it was like almost 20 minutes, which is unheard of for
Yeah.
TV news. But I wanted to do something very different, and that gave me the opportunity to really kind of sink my teeth into meatier subjects and explore it without the time limit of like a minute and 45 seconds.
Yeah. For those that want to get into investigative journalism, do you have any advice for that?
I mean, what I would say is it definitely takes a very unique mindset. A lot of the stories can be really tough,
Yeah.
and it's important to be able to leave that at work. And that can be really hard because sometimes you get those phone calls in your off hours, or you have to go out and tackle these things. But I would say, you know, another important thing is learning how to multitask, because a lot of times you're looking into multiple stories at the same time. So you have to be able to pivot and not just tunnel vision for X amount of time. You have to be able to like tunnel vision on three different, topics all at once.
Yeah. So how did Live Now from Fox happen?
So that actually happened when I stepped away from news. I decided after 3 years of investigative journalism that it wasn't for me. I loved it, but I'm someone who carries stuff with me.
Mm.
And I had worked on a really difficult, emotionally draining piece that I'm incredibly proud of, but that was really tough. And I felt like I was always carrying around a lot of that weight with me, and I wanted to do something different. I also had two little kids at the time, and I wanted to spend more time with them. So I actually stepped away, and I wanted to explore life outside of TV news. So I never shut the door, but that's when I started my own communications coaching company. And I was really happy doing it. I had like started it, I think it was for 2 years when I got the call from LiveNOW, and it piqued my interest because it's so different from traditional news that I thought, okay, well, let me see what it's about. And I fell in love with the immediacy of it, the unfiltered aspect of it, the fact that there, isn't commentary, and you're giving people what's happening live every day. So it's always something different. It always keeps you on your toes. It's fresh. You don't have to force the content because the content is there. And it was just such a different way of viewing news that it was that new excitement all over again for something that, I wasn't sure that I'd ever get back into.
Yeah. And we've been hearing for over a decade, I would say now, it's going to be about streaming. It's going to be about streaming. It's going to be about streaming. Well, streaming is here. It's not the future. It's here. And the move from traditional to streaming is what everybody is talking about right now. So what has it been like going from so many years working in a traditional newsroom to now on the streaming side of things?
I love it. It's the passion and the purpose remains the same, in which, our job is one of public service. It's to share with our community and our audience what is happening and why it's relevant. But it takes away all of that sensationalism. It takes away all of the almost the forced upon aspect of the traditional news, and it strips away to the bare essence of what news is. And to me, it's so exciting, and because we're on the forefront of it, we get to be part of the evolution and the creativity. A lot of times when you go from something traditional, things will be the way that they are because it's always been done, and there's no room for innovation or experimentation. And at LiveNOW, you're encouraged to try things out. And if it doesn't work, that's a learning opportunity. And if it does, great, we found a whole new way of doing something. So that to me is really exciting, to be on the forefront and to be able to almost shape what it is for our audience.
For those that don't know, you're also doing the audio. You're also setting up maybe an interview in the background. You're also adjusting the different like if there's breaking news, you're looking at this coming in or this shot coming in. Which shot do I go to next? All of that is done by the host, which is something that I had never seen before I did it.
Yeah, and it's so ironic because I've always thought of myself as a really basic person when it comes to tech. Like, I am not that tech savvy person, or, it's like that's my husband's realm. I'm just very simple. So when I first saw what's known as like the control panel with all the buttons and you press one button and then you take it and then it actually goes live to your entire audience, that was very intimidating for me. And I was like, okay, well, I've never done this before. I can talk, but how do I talk and press the buttons at the same time? So there was that learning curve. What I love about it is I'm in absolute control over everything. So if I want to go immediately to this live event that's happening, in Washington, D.C., I can do that without having to wait. I can, have someone dial into Zoom and bring them on a breaking news story in like a matter of moments. The technology is incredible now. And I think that is also a really exciting part, is that we now have access to so much because of this technology that you don't have to wait around for the news to eventually trickle down. It's there for the taking. So we have cameras all around the world and all around the United States. So we can just get those live feeds and share them with our viewers with the punch of a button. But yeah, no, I'm doing everything, which is probably really funny for my husband to think that I can do all that stuff. But I love it. I love being in control, and I love being able to be creative and find new ways to share with our viewers what's going on and bring them behind the scenes. That's another thing I think that is unique about LiveNOW, is that we want our viewers to see everything, warts and all, because news isn't perfect and it's not edited and polished. It's happening in real time. And sometimes the camera is shaky. Sometimes the camera goes down. Sometimes the microphone at an event isn't working. And that's real. And that's what's happening. So describing to our viewers and taking them through that, like, hey, this is what's going on. We're not filtering anything and we're not splicing anything together. We're giving it to you as it's actually happening. And you then can watch with us.
But that's what people want today. They don't want polished, refined. They want to just see what's going on. They want to get the details as right when they're coming in. They want this kind of behind the scenes raw view at everything.
Yeah, and I think, and I mean, this is nothing new, but the maybe the mistrust of media, that's been talked about for a really long time. But I think that that's a reaction to the world that we're living in now, which is filtered and polished and edited, and you don't know if it's real or not. And we're not here to be perfect, because that's not life. And I think people are hungry for like that real, authentic rawness to it. And they're like, you know what? I don't care if if it's a little blurry, but that's actually what's happening. I'll take it. And I appreciate you for not trying to filter it out or try and make it perfect. So I think, and myself included, it's like when you go on social media and you see something and you're like, okay, we all know that that's not real. And you become a little jaded, and this is refreshing because it's not any of that.
Yeah, it's like riding a bike. The control room is like riding a bike. It feels super intense at first, like I am never going to figure this out. Like in my brain, I will never figure this. And then all of a sudden you're just like do 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 do, like the piano, and you're like, "Oh, okay, I guess I can do this."
Yeah, it's muscle memory. It's so funny though, because I'm someone who takes like copious amounts of notes, like, and asks
Me
a million
too.
questions. So when I first started learning, I think it was like 12 note cards, and I would put them all around me. It was like step-by-step processes, and I would color code them because like I love my
Exactly how I am
highlighters.
too. Exactly. Yes.
And so, yeah, so it was like my security blanket that I carried with me into like the studio every day. And then one day I no longer needed them, and I put them in the drawer for any other host who might be coming in, and maybe that would help them. But yeah, and now it's like, hey, look what I can do. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of your journey from traditional news to streaming news, there are a lot of listeners that may be getting the idea of, like, what other ways can I venture away from news, but still be doing what I love, which is journalism? And I think a lot that are used to the traditional route are now looking at places like LiveNOW from Fox as maybe their next step. For those that are kind of getting this sensation of maybe I would want to venture into something like streaming news, what would you say to them?
I would absolutely encourage it. I mean, I think when I first thought, okay, maybe I'm going to step away from news, and I love Oprah Winfrey. And there was actually this one episode that she was talking about when it came to career change or industry change. And the way that she framed it was so beautiful in that she described it as a thread, a common thread. So your purpose, your passion is this common thread. And it's not the job, it's that purpose that tethers that job. And so you can go from industry to industry as long as, it aligns with that purpose. And so what I would say is if your purpose is journalism and it's finding out truth and it's connecting with your audience in terms of information and immediacy, I think streaming is absolutely the way. But you know what? I mean, the beautiful thing is now it's not just about TV. The digital aspect of it is so important when it comes to social media. You can do that too. You can do web stories. I mean, there are so many ways to still follow that passion, and it doesn't have to be that traditional format. There are so many different opportunities now.
Yeah, I talked about this on a podcast episode, but people will say, well, after news, what is my plan B? And I always like to say, what if it's not your plan B? What if it's your plan A re-inspired? What if it's has that common thread, like you said, but it can be something different because we are taking all those skills we learned in traditional journalism to all these new, exciting, innovative ways and ventures, right?
Yeah, and I think it's opening yourself up to the possibilities. I think, especially for people who have always wanted to do journalism or really any career, I think you kind of box yourself into that track and you become so used to only thinking of your future in those narrow terms that you're not sure what lies beyond. And that can be terrifying when you want to like break down those walls and see what else is out there. But at the same time, it's so liberating to be able to say, well, what if this or what if that? And maybe it falls flat, and that's okay. It's part of that journey and that process of rediscovering, what life looks like. But there's no one career forever. It evolves like we evolve as humans. I mean, your industry, your career, your profession, it can evolve as well.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue. So we're talking about some of the things that you've taught people as a communications coach when you've had your communications business. What would you say makes up a person's brand and what makes up a powerful, strong brand?
I always tell my clients that the most important thing for a brand or for a company or for yourself as the extension of the brand is to be authentic. It has to be anchored in authenticity. And it has to really reflect those true values, because if a brand isn't authentic, people are smart. They sense that. They sense that, okay, I don't really feel like this is vibing. And so when you're considering the brand, it has to be true to your mission, your passion, your purpose, and also be a genuine reflection of yourself, because a brand is not just the item. It's more than that. It's about the connection with the consumer, and it has to create that connection. Otherwise, it's just not going to be successful or be as powerful. It has to almost evoke something primal in someone. It's like, why do you choose brand A over brand B if they're technically the same? Because you feel a deeper connection. You feel more of a kinship to a certain brand because it reflects maybe your values, or it elicits excitement. And so I always tell people, like, distill it into those personality characteristics, and that will be your baseline, but it has to be authentic and genuine.
Do you find that you're able to bring out that authenticity and that connection even more so being with LiveNOW?
100%. We do not have teleprompters. So in the typical broadcast, the person on TV is actually reading what's on a screen that viewers can't see. It's written usually for them, and you can revise it, but not having that, it's like what I'm saying is my actual own voice. It's how
Right.
I would talk. And that is so liberating. And it's almost like the shackles have come off because I can actually be myself. And I've been encouraged to be myself. I think a lot of young journalists have been taught, well, you have to act like this anchor and you have to have these certain hand movements and these gestures, and the tone in your voice has to follow this certain cadence. And how many people have always said, oh, you have that anchor voice. And you're like, okay, well, clearly it's been ingrained in me. Everyone is so unique and themselves, and it's such a beautiful thing to see. And you can infuse your personality into when you're on air, because yeah, you can be creative and have your own voice and say, I'm going to do this, and this is like, what I like to do. And it actually, and I don't know if I've ever described something like this, but it's fun. Like, I actually really have fun at what I do, which is, that's the best feeling. You couldn't ask for anything more.
Yeah. Yeah. How do journalists help build their connection with people on air? Can you give some tips for that?
Yeah, I think it's really leaning into connecting on that human level. And there's always, the person behind the story or the story behind the story, but it's really getting under all of those layers and figuring out what that heartbeat is and what that meat is, and then you go from there. But it's getting to know the topic, it's getting to know the person on that human level and view it from that perspective and have that real curiosity to understand and to listen. And I think listening is so important for anything in our life. And it's to really want to get to know the person, where they're coming from, and being curious in terms of that, and not just wanting them to say what you want to hear, or or else it doesn't matter. But that's what I would say.
How do people show authority through their body language? And do you find that more difficult being with LiveNOW from Fox, or do you find it easier?
I think because of all of the years that I've been in this, I don't find it difficult. But what I would say is, to anyone, is body language is probably like 90%. When you walk in a room, even before you start speaking, people are analyzing your body language. They are making insights and judgments, whether they are accurate or not, based on the body language. So it's about having an openness and a sense of comfort in your own body and your own self. And I think that will naturally flow into confidence, but, just being open and having your shoulders back and your head up and a smile on your face. And a lot of times when people are nervous, we forget to smile. We might think we're smiling, but we're not. But that is such a huge, game changer when you're walking in a room or you're meeting someone or you're on air, is just to be open and to have that smile on your face when it's appropriate, to just show that you're a friendly person.
Yeah, exactly. How do people excel also at interviews? And are there any tips you could give our listeners when you're conducting interviews? Because on LiveNOW, you do a lot of them and you do a lot of live interviews. So I'm curious as to know maybe if you have some advice on that front.
Yeah, I would say, the first and maybe the only tip that I would share would be to prepare. you always want to, and I always recommend this to clients or whomever, is you always want to mimic the scenario that you're going to be in and to practice in that environment. So if you're going to be on a Zoom interview, have mock Zoom interviews, even with a friend, or honestly, even with yourself. If you don't have anyone, go on that Zoom interview and just see how you look, see how you feel. You want to actually feel those butterflies ahead of time. So when it's actually happening, your body remembers, and it's all about that muscle memory. So I would say preparing is the key. The more you prepare, the more comfortable you're going to be. And by natural extension, the more confident you'll be because you'll have already done it several times. So I would say practice, prepare. If you have a friend or a family member who you can like rope into it, have them play the reporter, have a couple of mock questions, go through it, watch yourself. I know it can be painful. I hated watching myself when I was first
I still
on
do.
TV. I couldn't I would honestly block my ears because I thought, okay, my voice is the most annoying. I'm like, do I do that with my eyes? Like, what am I doing? This is terrible. But you got it. Like it's painful, but it will help in the long run.
Yeah. Do you ever still get anxious going on air, interviewing people, doing any of your job? And you talked about this and the idea of switching that idea of anxiousness and thinking of it as excitement instead.
Yeah. So, it's almost one and the same, anxiety and excitement. It's all about your nervous system. It's a flutter, but I think your brain interprets it differently. So anxiety, it's thought of as negative. Excitement it's thought of as positive. But what I always share to anyone, and whether it's in your personal life or your professional life, is before you do anything, you have to remember why you're doing it. Like, what is the purpose? Why am I doing this? Why am I here? What is my role? And the more that you're clear about why you're doing something or what you're doing, the more confidence you're going to have. And you're going to translate that anxiety into excitement. So a lot of people, before they go on stage to give a speech, that's anxiety provoking.
Mm-hmm.
People get nervous before they talk in front of a crowd. And it's all about remembering why you're in front of that audience. Like, what are you there to do? And a lot of times, most times, if not every time, it's to share a message. It's to share your vision. And it's to remember what that vision is and why you're so passionate about it. And to remember that that's the reason why you're there. They're not going to look at you, but they want to learn about your purpose. And they're actually on the same team as you. I know a lot of times it's like, okay, it's me versus them, but they're there to learn, and they want to learn, and they want to hear from you, and they're excited to hear from you, and they're going to cheer you on when you share that passion and that purpose and that information. And the more that you remind yourself of these things, the more that anxiety is going to lessen, and the more excited you're going to be to say, you know what, gosh darn it, the reason why I'm here is pretty amazing, and why wouldn't people want to hear about that? And I'm here to tell them. So I'm going to go on that stage. They're going to be just amazed and empowered and enlightened, and it's going to be a win-win situation. And you psych yourself up and you get excited and you go out there, whether that's on stage or whether that's in an interview, and you're like, okay, let me do this. Like, here I am. Like, let me share this incredible thing.
Yeah, amazing. That's exactly right. Okay, let's do quick fires. If I weren't a journalist, I would be
a therapist.
That makes sense. And speaking of just the way that you talk, it's like so much of your psychology major you've been able to implement into your job. Is that do you sometimes catch yourself like, oh, I'm running through my psychologist's major during this moment?
Yes, because a lot of times when you're in an interview, it's like a therapy session in that you want to ask open-ended questions to create a longer response. So a lot of times also you'll follow up a question with another question. It's like, oh, well, why do you think that? Which is exactly what a therapist would say. But
Yeah.
it's to really get someone to start talking and open up and become comfortable. And the more that they share, the more that they want to share. There is so much that connects journalism with counseling and therapy. And it's fun to see people have those aha moments in these interviews, or they appreciate a good question because it makes them feel really good being able to give that insight. And then they walk away and they're like, wow, like I really was able to share what I wanted to, which is always a great feeling.
Yeah. Your coffee order.
Oh gosh. Okay. So it's coffee with no sugar, but milk and cream. I cannot do black. I wish I could. I don't even need the sugar because I kind of like that bitterness to wake me up, but it has to be milky.
Love it. Your favorite travel destination?
Oh gosh. Anywhere where there's family and friends. I love to travel to new adventurous locations. I live very far away from my family, as does my husband. So a lot of times the destinations we go to are the same ones. But I'm someone and again, this goes into journalism. I'm endlessly curious. I want to see different environments, how people live, philosophies, lifestyles. My ideal job in a way, if I didn't have kids, would be to travel the world and just be part of all of that. It just seems so fascinating. This world is so large and so small at the same time. I want to see it all.
Something people often get wrong about you.
Well, this would be very easy, and that would be my last name. They get that wrong all the time. When I was in high school, there were 2 other Stephanies, and they always were known as Stephanie and their last name. And I was always known as just Stephanie. So I'd always like to joke, like it was like Madonna and Cher, like I only had one name. But it was because no one could pronounce my last name. So yeah.
They're like, we're not even going to try.
No.
The last movie, TV show, or book you watched and loved?
So this is going to totally tip off people that I'm a parent, but K-pop Demon Hunters. My daughter really wanted to see it, and so I did. And I actually, first of all, the music is amazing, but I actually really appreciated the story and the message that it had, which is be proud to be yourself. Don't hide who you are. What could be perceived as weaknesses are actually your strengths. Like, it was just such a great message in a kid movie, but one that I feel like a lot of adults can appreciate.
Yeah, I feel like I have to wait just a few more years on that one. My 3-year-old, we tried watching it with her and she got a little freaked out. So she loves everything. Well, she loves everything like Baby Shark, like the zombie ones and the monster ones. So I'm like, this is right up her alley. But I was like, oh, maybe she's a little young yet. But in a year from now, that's all she's going to want to see. I guarantee it.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it's like the soundtrack is on repeat at our house. So yeah.
A snapshot of an ordinary everyday moment that gives you true joy.
Gosh, being with my family. So I have an 8-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son, and truly just cuddling with them on the couch and having those quiet moments brings me so much joy. I think part of it is because I realize how fleeting this time is and how much I appreciate these moments. And so I just want to bottle it up as much as possible. But honestly, not that I'm old. I don't want to say I'm old, but the older that I get, the more I find joy in so-called simple things. Mm-hmm. It's not the fancy. It's not the complicated. It's not the crazy. It's just those quieter moments when it's just you doing something that you love, and just being in that moment is just so... It just fills me with so much joy. But yes, like just being on the couch with my family, that's just beautiful.
Did having children change your perspective at all on your job and on your career?
100%. And only for the better. I think before kids, I was focused on my job, and that was my priority, which I think is fine. But especially with journalism, it's a lifestyle as well. And sometimes you can get sucked into it, and that becomes the biggest thing in your life. And the lack of balance, which is treated as normal, is not necessarily healthy. And having kids forced me to reprioritize my life in the best of ways. And it was really hard because I am a reforming people pleaser. And it was really hard for me to stick up for myself and have boundaries. But once I had kids, it gave me that backbone because it's not just about me anymore. I have to think about these little children. And is the decision that I'm making, is that going to be good for them? And there was one time, there was a breaking news story not in the area. And my news director called me and said, I need you to fly down and cover this breaking news story. And my initial thought was, okay, absolutely, I'm there. And I get off the phone and my husband's like, okay, so you have 2 sick children and a sick husband. So how is this going to work? And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm just so used to saying yes. And he's like, you need to get back on the phone and explain this to your news director. And I had that feeling that you get when you have to call someone and share bad news. And she was lovely about it. And she said, your family is your priority. And I thought, why couldn't I have just said that in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
So I've been retraining myself for many years, ever since having kids, on how to set those healthy boundaries and put that respect into place. And that's been just the best thing for my whole life, professionally and personally, being able to do that.
Well, especially for us as journalists, we just place so much of our identity on our job. And once you have kids, you realize that's fine. You can have your identity be part of your job, but it's when it becomes all of your job. But when you have kids, you reprioritize and you're like, okay, I have this other purpose now,
Yeah, no, and it's so refreshing too. If you have a really bad day at work, it would stick with me. And I would just ruminate over, all the bad things or the dramatic things. And now it's like, okay, it's time to let that go, because now after work, you have so many important things and people in your life. That's really not that bad. Right. And then you shift focus, and it's so wonderful to be able to do that, because you really don't have room for the toxicity or the drama. Now I'm too old for this. It's I don't have time for this. Whereas in my early 20s, I'd call my friends and say, oh my gosh, you hear this and that. And it'd be hours of going over some of these things. And it's just, you got to let that go. It's just, and that's so freeing, honestly.
Yeah, it's so true. If you could go back, hold on. Yeah. If you could switch lives with one person for a day, who would it be?
Oh my gosh, that is so hard. I don't even know who that would be. I think my initial thought would be the president of the United States, because I really want to know what that's like. But then at the same time, there are so many people that I would want to be. I feel like all we see are the facades for all these different professions, and that's not what it's like. And I think it would be so interesting for all of us to peek behind the curtain for so many different people and probably realize that hey, they're more like us than we even think possible. That's such a hard question. I don't know if I'd be able to pinpoint. I think my immediate would be the president, because what an intense, incredible job that is, but so many other people too.
I didn't even ever think of it this way. Sometimes the people we think we would choose that we'd want to switch lives with for a day, we'd realize, yeah, we really actually wouldn't want their life after we switch lives with them, even if we think that their lives seem just so incredible,
Yeah. I think, a lot of times we put people on pedestals that we don't know, and we're like, oh, they must have the most glamorous, happy life. And we don't know. And maybe then we would reflect on our own life and say, you know what, we have it pretty good. But I think, there's always the grass is greener mentality that it's only natural. But Yeah, it's interesting. I wish we could all kind of just like peek in on other lives and see, what the truth is, because I think we'd probably be surprised.
Yeah. There's also that never meet your heroes quote, which I
Yeah.
actually have run into before and been like, oh, I'm so let down because I was so excited meeting this person and it just didn't live up to what my idea of that person was.
That's so interesting. Yeah. I mean, I know, and how disappointing, right?
Right. One thing you're deeply grateful for right now.
Oh gosh. I would say my family. I would also say my health. I think as I get older, the more grateful I am when everything is in line and working. And I never want to take that for granted. I remember I had this like issue with my foot once, and I realized how much I walk because I had to take a trip and I had to go through the airport. And I was like, gosh, this is a lot of walking and my foot really hurts. Wow. I can't believe how much I walk. And I never realized that, and I was never grateful. And in that moment, I was like, I vow to always be grateful for my feet and to always appreciate them and everything that they give me. But it's so true. It's like we take everything for granted because we just assume that everything is going to be working. And when something doesn't, you realize how much you rely on that and how much you appreciate it. So I always try, it's hard, again, work in progress, to be grateful for the health and my body.
Gosh, that's so true. A couple months after I gave birth to my daughter, I fell down some concrete steps. I slipped and
Oh,
fell and hit my back. And I thought at the moment that I broke my back. I did not break my back, but it was bruised, sprained for weeks. And I remember just not being able to like stand up from a chair. And I was like, I had just this like new perspective of like, oh my gosh, if because it would hurt to even pick up my child. And I was like, if I could never pick up my child again, like, you just end up taking things for granted. You don't even realize the things you take for granted until something happens and you're like, oh my gosh, I need my back just to be able to pick up my child. The luxury of being able to pick up my child.
yeah. No, and I try. And again, it's easy in every, life, but it's like always just trying to have that gratitude. And it's, I think, I need to get back on that. But yeah, I mean, it's so important.
Yeah, it's easy to forget too over time because it's like when that happened, I was like, I'm always going to be grateful for the back that I have that I can pick
Right.
up my child. And then years go by, I'm like, am I really still grateful for my back? It's still sore. Last question, Stephanie. If you could go back in time to when you first started your career, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
I would say believe in yourself and never make decisions based out of fear. I think when I first started in the industry, I didn't do that. And the longer I was in the industry, strangely enough, the more my self-confidence was chipped away and the less I believed in myself. And it took a long time for me to build that back up. And it was interesting. I got engaged to my husband, and a few months in, I had this job offer, and I thought, I have to take it. Like, I'm never going to get another job offer like this again. And he said, Stephanie, you're so talented. Like, just wait a beat, be patient. And I got upset at him, and I was like, you're trying to ruin my dreams. And he's like, no, it's because I believe in you and I know that you're going to get something amazing. And like, what a lesson. I ended up taking the job out of fear because I didn't think that I was going to get anything else. Was it a great job offer? Absolutely. Would I have done something differently if I could go back? Yeah. I would have said, Stephanie, listen and believe in yourself, because this is not the one and only job offer you're ever going to get. And if you're feeling a certain way, and I think the other thing I would say, Stephanie, is listen to your gut. The older I get, the more I realize that my intuition is pretty good. And if something's off, or if I don't feel that everything's aligned, or, about a person or a decision, like, take a moment, and assess why am I feeling that way and what is my intuition trying to tell me. I think a lot of times we try and squash it and minimize it and be like, oh, that's just outside noise. I think that would be the two most important things is, believe in yourself, make your decisions not based out of fear, but out of strength, and listen to your intuition because it is smarter than you give it credit for.
Such great advice. So important to listen to your gut, and easier said than done sometimes, but you got to try to listen to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stephanie, this was amazing. I got so much out of it. So many helpful tips for our listeners. Do you still do the coaching services if anybody is listening and wants to get in touch with you?
Yes, I do. I do still work with clients with communication.
Good. Okay. So how can people get in touch with you if they want to follow you for Live Now and Then, but also get in touch with you for some of your services that you offer?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm on all the social media platforms. So if they just want to search my name, I have a website as well that if you just Google my name, and yes, as we have said, it's very long and complicated. So you'll have to spell it pretty correctly. But yeah, no, I have my own website. My email address is located on that. You can just DM me or whatever on all the social media platforms and people can get in touch.
Perfect.